is up, guys? Josh Beatar and Alex Goldman here, back with a another preview show. And look, by all accounts, this is a sleeper of a card, and by sleeper, I don't mean that in a good way. I do feel like next weekend, after such a big high that we're going to experience tomorrow at UFC 299, with probably the most stacked card of the year, we return to the hallowed UFC Apex. For Tuivasa headlining against Meerschaert Tybura. Look, we're going to be honest. We're just going to go over the main card. Prelims are, there's some fun fights on there. O'Day Osborne's featuring on the prelims. We've actually got Josh Cooleybow. Shout out Josh Cooleybow, who will be fighting on the prelims as well. Natan Levy, that's another good fight between him and Mike Davis. But compared to what we have this weekend, it is. It's not what you want to see as a fan. I think
it's like going from A5 Wagyu to like a Coles $25 rump steak.
Yeah. So we're going to kickstart it. Joe Meerschaert and Brian Barbarena in the middleweight division. A fun fight at middleweight. Both guys battle tested for sure. I guess your thoughts on this fight.
Well, and you are right. This is a bit of a sleeper card, and funnily enough, that probably means it's going to be the best card of 2024 because that's just how this sport works. Look, I actually think this is one of my more favorite fights on the card. I view these two fighters as very much in the same sort of realm that they can beat a lot of really good guys. They're obviously not at the top of the division at the moment. Looking at it though, my immediate kind of reaction is to give Gerald Meerschaert the victory. I think Gerald's been looking really, really good lately. His striking has significantly improved. Obviously, he's got good jiu-jitsu. The way I just kind of view it is I just think Gerald's got a couple of more ways to win. Brian Barbarena is very good. He's also got a good ground game, very good striker, very scrappy, but I just view Gerald Meerschaert as kind of, he's on a slightly more upwards trajectory. That's not me saying he's going to be future champ, anything like that, but I just kind of feel he's on a more upwards trajectory. I feel like he's adding more skills to his toolkit. Whereas Brian Barbarena, to me, he's a very, very good fighter, but he's very much been the same fighter for, several years now. And just thinking about this fight, I do think Gerald takes it. I think by TKO in the third. But what are your thoughts?
What's up, guys? It's Josh here from the stands. And look, I know you're in the middle of a good little interview that we're currently doing, but I want to take a second of your time just to give a quick little shout out to today's sponsor, TrainAid. Obviously, they're big supporters of us, like we are of them. And today they're sponsoring this video. And look, I want to let you guys know about a little product they do. Their premium product, TrainAid Hydration. It's the best hydration formula on the market, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. And look, if you don't believe me, ask guys like Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski, Leon Edwards. You ever heard of these guys? I mean, they're the top athletes in the world, and they're all taking TrainAid Hydration. It really is the #1 formula in the world for hydration, and in the summer months here in Australia, I mean, it's something that I think everyone should be taking. And TrainAid have been very nice to give us a discount code, a very healthy discount code as well. I mean, it's a nice little discount code. If you use the code FTS15 at the checkout, they will give you 15% off. We'll leave a link to their website in this description of this video. And check them out, guys. Please support them because they are supporting us. Cheers.
I do think it's a fun fight. I like seeing. I do like when the UFC puts on fights between two battle-tested guys, as opposed to the traditional putting a battle-tested guy against a new up-and-comer, and the up-and-comer, puts it on him. I do like this fight. Obviously, both guys have fought some pretty formidable names at middleweight. Both are coming off losses. Didn't have a great 2023. We're looking to kickstart 2024, obviously in a winning way. And I tend to agree with you. I do think Gerald Meerschaert might have a few more tools in the arsenal for him. I think it'll be a close fight. I do think it. I think it has potential to be fight of the night as well. I don't know method of victory. I'm not the greatest with a method of victory type of guy, but I do think it'll be your. I do think it'll be your fight of the night. Obviously, both guys can scrap. Both guys love to fight. They love to stand and bang as well, especially Brian. Brian's a gamer, always has been, and always will be. But not a yeah, I think it's definitely the fight that if you're going to be watching next weekend to pay attention to. Moving on to the next fight, women's bantamweight, Chiasson fighting Panini Kianzad.
I've never seen her fight.
I haven't either. She has been around though. Fought Raquel Pennington, lost via decision a few years ago. Look, both ladies are coming off tough times. Macy didn't even fight in 2023. Kianzad fought once in 2023, I believe, once in 2022. So fairly a lot of inactivity from both women over these last few years. I think it's a pick'em fight. I think inactivity plays into a lot, especially when you start, especially in these bantamweight divisions. I mean, they're both 32. They're starting to get there in age. I mean, they've probably got a few more years left in that division, in the sport even. I think Macy has a significant reach advantage, quite a significant one. I think, if anything, that may play into this fight. Obviously, there's nothing really else to say. I don't want to harp on it, and because I don't think people are going to be tuning into this preview prediction for this fight. But
I can't give my thoughts on it really. Like I've seen Macy fight, I have not seen Penny fight, so I can't like make a judgment on how they're going to match up with each other. It's hard.
It is a tough one. I think the next fight is actually a really fun fight. Christian Rodriguez, coming off a good win against Cameron Simon, obviously the highly touted prospect from South Africa. He defeated the highly touted Raul Rosas Jr. last year. He's been a bit of a prospect killer. What Christian Rodriguez has been, and I like this dude. 10-1.
I mean,
I think a bit more time for him in this division at featherweight, and who knows, maybe he's a guy that we see, take charge in a few years' time. I think what he did against Cameron Simon, he had a lot of hype against him. Obviously, teammates of DDP, Dricus du Plessis, and he silenced that pretty well. Same with Raul Rosas Jr. Obviously, a lot of hype behind him, and he also silenced that last year. So coming up against Isaac Dulgarian, 6-0. I mean, undefeated, but I think Christian takes this. I think his skills are a lot more well-rounded and more developed, I think, at this stage of his career. Only 26, a lot of years still left to go. Obviously, Isaac 27, but I do think Christian has a good future in the sport, being so young and seeing what he's done so far in his UFC career. I'm taking Christian Rodriguez. I think in a fairly dominant performance. I think I know I said I wasn't good with method of victory, but I think this one you will see a submission.
What's really interesting about this fight is that both these fighters have very varied finishes on their records. They have knockouts, TKOs, different sorts of submissions. So I think this makes for a really interesting fight. But what I really like about Christian Rodriguez is he's not the best striker in the division. He's not the best wrestler. He's not the best jiu-jitsu guy in the division, but he's solid. He's solid everywhere. And I think that that's such an underrated skill set to have, just being solid everywhere. And it makes him really tough to fight. We saw that in the Raul Rosas Jr. fight. We saw that in the Cameron Simon fight. He's hard to fight because he's solid everywhere. And, when I look at this fight, I just feel like Christian is a little bit more well-rounded, has the experience, and, I could see him getting Isaac out of there. I really could, and I agree with you. Submission is kind of how I would see it going down. I'd view it as submission after getting taken down kind of thing, but I do agree. I do think Christian Rodriguez takes it. I'm going to say probably submission in the second, but definitely moving on, I think, to a really, really good fight. Vincent Preux, who's at this point an OG and legend of the game. I mean, for God's sake, the man has a choke named after him. It's the speed choke. Versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. So I hate saying this. I love OSP. I really do. I love OSP. I think he's so underrated.
Bring back heavyweight OSP. I liked heavyweight OSP.
I liked heavyweight OSP.
The fat OSP where he let himself go and he had no rule. He had no real body form, but I liked him at heavyweight.
Yeah, it was great.
Sorry, continue with your thoughts.
No, you're right. I agree. Yeah, heavyweight OSP versus Kennedy, different story. But I do think Kennedy takes this. Again, full respect to OSP. He's got a lot of road mileage on him, and he is getting up there in age, certainly not past it. There's certainly a lot of fighters he could beat, but I could see Kennedy putting the lights out. I really could.
Yeah, I agree. I think OSP has been. I think people are quick to forget. Like there was a point, 2016 or 2015, we saw John Jones versus Irvin St. Preux for the interim light heavyweight title, and in a close fight, like a fight that okay, John didn't look great in, but nevertheless, he still went 5 rounds with the greatest of all time. And he's one of those guys you can never count out. But the age as well. I mean, OSP is now 40, and I think Father Time catches everyone eventually.
Agreed.
I think, and Kennedy's so big. He is so huge. He's like 6'6" or 6'5", has a huge reach advantage, huge reach in general. 1-1 for last year. But I do think Kennedy does take it here over OSP in a fun fight, but one that I think is pretty one-sided. Moving on to the co-main, chief support, whatever you want to call it. Loosa taking on Brian Battle. Fun fight. Loosa is actually, for those of you historians that may remember, was Jack Della Maddalena's Dana White's Contender Series opponent. And you look at the trajectory of where these guys went. Obviously, Jack's now fighting a week earlier against Gilbert Burns in what could be a title eliminator type fight, and you have Loosa fighting Brian Battle. No slouch, and still a great fight. But what a tale of two trajectories, I guess. From that original fight 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago at this point. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
For a while I was picking Loosa. I kind of thought, he might be able to just overwhelm Brian Battle. But one thing about Brian Battle is that, similar-ish to Rodriguez, he's solid. I think he's a little less completely well-rounded than Christian Rodriguez, but he's solid and he's tough. Brian Battle is tough. And I could see him edging out a decision here. I don't see a finish in this fight. And if there is going to be one, I think it's going to come from Loosa. But I do see Brian Battle getting the decision here in a hard-fought fight, not a sort of fight of the night type deal, but a close fight. But I do see Brian Battle edging out a decision here, but what about yourself?
We also, I forgot to mention as well, there's Loosa is or was Kamaru Usman's training partner for a while as well. And when he came into the UFC, well, more specifically the Dana White's Contender Series fight, he looked like a guy that he looked the part. This was still when Kamaru Usman was the champion, and I thought, wow, this could be the guy that carries the welterweight division into the future. Looked like a Kamaru Usman, doppelganger, during his fight and his run so far. It's a fun fight, and I think Loosa actually overwhelms him to the point of a finish. He defeated Reece McKee late last year, and he just has a really good. When he fought Jack, he nearly finished Jack on the ground. Which in fact, makes me worried for this weekend. But I do think Ange has tools to crack the top 15. He is a pressure fighter. He's a very good wrestler, very good takedown, great striking. I don't think Jack finished him. I think they went the full 3 rounds in their Contender Series fight a few years ago. But since then, has improved a lot. Still relatively young. I mean, give the guy a couple more years, and I feel like we definitely could see him closing in on a top 15, top 10 spot. I'm high on Loosa, and I think he does take out Brian Battle, who is no slouch either, like you mentioned. Brian, you can never count out Brian Battle. Obviously, heading on to the main event, and the reason why we're all here, Tuivasa taking on Meerschaert Tybura. In a redemption-style fight for Tuivasa, he needs a win. In a sense that you're never going to cut Tuivasa, I don't think, at this point. I mean, the guy's only 30 years old at the heavyweight division. That's how long he's been in the heavyweight division for. The guy was 25, 24 when he entered the UFC. I mean, people were quick to forget when he came and knocked out Rashad Coulter in 2017, that was, what are we now, 24? That was 7 years ago. He was 23. He was a 23-year-old heavyweight. So the guy has, made his career really in the UFC. But I think this is actually a much better fight for Ty. If we remember, Ty's been through periods of time where he went on a 4-fight losing streak. Then he went on a 5-fight winning streak. And now he's back on a 3-fight losing streak from memory, I believe. Obviously, the
3.
fight, Cyril and Volkov. And who was the one before that? Let's check.
Sergey.
Okay, that's right. That was a bad one too.
Yeah.
So he obviously had most of 2023 off until he fought Volkov, and in a fight where, just experience and those little things I think paid off. I think this is a great fight for Ty to reestablish himself. I do think Ty knocks out Meerschaert Tybura. Meerschaert, obviously a great fighter, bit older in the tooth. Coming in at 38 years old, and you look at what Tom Aspinall did to Meerschaert Tybura. He was pretty dominant. He's not the funnest fighter to watch, not the most entertaining style of fighting. Usually a decision fighter, whereas Ty sort of, everyone sort of knows how Ty wants to fight. He's going to stand and bang and try and get you out of there. And I think this is actually a great matchup for Ty. I think he can reassert himself in the heavyweight division with a win. Do I ever think Ty is going to be at that top 3, top 2 level where he was a year and a half ago? I don't know. I don't think so at this point. I just think the heavyweight division now has just evolved to a point of not being able to catch up unless you were already a part of it. You got guys like Jailton Almeida. I think Curtis Blades would beat Tuivasa at this point. I mean, Aspinall, look what Cyril did. I mean, just the gone of the days of being the big heavyweight that can just knock you out. They're long gone. So I do think Ty finishes Meerschaert in pretty dominant fashion and reestablishes himself as a top 15 heavyweight, because I do think he is a top 15 heavyweight. I just think this is a good fight for him, and good on him for getting a main event. It's nice to see one of Australia's own getting a main event slot.
Yeah, look, I do agree. I think Ty does win this fight. Now, if this was against the Meerschaert Tybura of 2018, who fought Walt Harris, Greg Hardy, Ben Rothwell, I think that Meerschaert Tybura would win this fight. But as you say, Meerschaert is a little bit older at this point, and I think there's a really big thing here, which is Ty's a very physical fighter. You look at when he sets up the exchanges, or even when he does grapple, he kind of falls into you. He's a very physical and strong athlete. And I think you need to be able to match that physicality to have a fairly good chance of beating him. Sergey was able to do it. Volkov was able to do it. And I just don't view Meerschaert Tybura as having that sort of physicality. Now, Meerschaert Tybura is very, very good. He achieves a lot of the small trips and takedowns that he'll get, through crafty veteran tactics. And he's got a lot of really smart striking sort of little tricks and, that he does here or there. But, I do agree. I just view he's a little bit older now. He's got a lot of wear and tear on the body. And I just view it as Ty's so much more physical. I think Ty's faster. Ty obviously hits a lot harder, in my opinion. And I can see Ty, winning this fight dominantly. I agree. And, funnily enough, going back to that fight with Volkov that Ty had, because we were obviously in attendance for that, I honestly think that the crowd reaction to when Ty was landing during that fight was nearly as loud as the main event. I remember it was crazy. So Ty's a superstar, and I agree with you. I don't think he gets cut even if he loses this. If he were to lose the next 5, okay, yeah, they'd probably cut him. But if he loses this one, I don't think he gets cut. But I think this is a good fight for him to take. I think it's a relatively safe fight in terms of him being able to get the victory. And I do agree. I think Ty probably gets the KO early in the first. I kind of got a feeling Ty's going to come out and just look to crack him, put him out.
Yeah, I think it'll set up a nice return for Ty to Australia as well, because I think obviously
305.
Yeah, rumors are going around about UFC 305 in Perth in August, which will set up nicely. A lot of guys that are fighting right now would definitely feature on that card. And let's talk about that for the next 2 minutes or so before we have to go. for once the UFC is doing something smart. Not that they don't do it ever, but they're doing something smart with the Australian fighters. Whereas last year you had guys fighting in July, backing up in September, and that card was, while still a good card, a little bit watered down because of the amount of competitors that fought 2 months prior. So this time around, I hope these guys don't fight from now till August, if that is the slated fight. Because then you got a good card already shaping up. You got Jack Della, who'll fight this weekend. Who knows what kind of a fight he could get in Perth? Maybe he could get a Shavkat Rakhmonov in Perth. What a fight that'd be!
Potential Volkanovski return.
Potential. I think Volk wants to go to Spain. I think that's like stuck in his head. If they do go to Spain, if not, you've got Whitaker on that card who could fight Strickland. Coulibaly would be in line for a return. I was going to say Pedro, but I mean he just retired. Obviously Ty, and then Urseg. I mean it's lining up to be a really good card actually, which would be really fun later on in the year. Anyway, we will head off. A quick one today, but nothing that's going to blow your hair back next weekend. If you do tune in, let us know how you go with your picks. We would love to find out. Shout out to, of course, today's sponsor, TrainAid Hydration. That link will be in the description of this video. If you use the code FTS15, quick little plug, you will get 15% off all products and apparel. Alex, any last words, man?
Only thing I want to say, guys, is enjoy the fights this weekend for 299. And well, this will be coming out afterwards, so I hope you guys enjoyed those fights. But biggest thing I want to say, guys, is stay tuned because we've definitely got a lot of really good interviews coming out in the next week. We have Stephen Urseg dropping. On top of that, we have local boxer Connor Wallace. We got a lot of good interviews coming out in the next few weeks, and we've seen a lot of support, especially lately. So just really appreciate all the support everyone's given us, guys. And that's all from me today.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the fights.